Wait, what are we talking about again?
Welcome back to another episode of I Can Do This All Day. I'm Dan, the part-time adventurer, and with me is Mark, the resident Jedi.
Hello there. Here we are again. 3 years we've been doing this thing that we call a podcast. 3 years we've been talking about movies. In 3 years, we've done a special episode for Labor Day. For all you laborers out there, breaking your backs at jobs you hate, hoping to bring joy. And we just pick our favorite movies about somebody trying to do a job and maybe not doing great at it. And this year is no exception. Our third annual Labor Day episode honoring the working people of Sandusky, Ohio, and other towns across the U.S. that make brake pads and auto parts and slap a warranty on the box. We're going to talk about an amazing 90s movie, one of the best movies to come out of an SNL cast ever. And I'm just stretching because Dan looks annoyed. Oh, Danny, we're going to talk about Tommy Boy.
Tommy Boy. So we're bringing it back to the 90s. And for all of those listeners who have been with us since the beginning, fantastic. Thank you very much. But for all those that are new, the Labor Day episode, we have done Office Space along with Waiting, and this year's selection is Tommy Boy. So we're bringing it back to the 90s. I'm rocking a 90s shirts with the goosebumps right here. We're going back into the time machine, but I wanted to ask you, Mark, what is your origin story with this movie?
I mean, who didn't love Farley? And still, who doesn't love Farley? And who didn't love Farley in the 90s, right? I feel like I saw this not in the theater because, you know, didn't get there, but when it was on TV and on cable repeatedly. I can't tell you how many times I've seen this movie because the number is huge. What about you?
Believe it or not, I think I've only seen this movie maybe 3 times, once being for this podcast.
You sweet summer child.
It's not that I didn't want to see it. It was just a movie that I never really got around to seeing. I never watched it until I want to say probably college. And that's a long stretch. I had heard the bits. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I think every kid in my junior high, or at least every guy in my junior high, would quote that movie or do something that was a bit from that movie, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, that was my story. Like I said, maybe 3 times, a little bit here and there. But I was a huge Chris Farley fan. I loved him on SNL. Some of my most laugh out loud moments as I was a kid watching, whether it's movies, TV, or Saturday Night Live, came from Chris Farley. So super happy to revisit this movie and check it out. Uh, do you have any personal salesman experience tie-ins with this movie, since this is about a salesman?
I think that we've both been in sales jobs that we didn't really love and selling products that are super boring. I don't know that I used any of the tactics from Tommy Boy. Didn't set anything on fire, didn't freak out, didn't tell people to shove their head up a bull's ass. But I mean, we were all there, feeling like, we had our sale and we stroked it and pet it and broke its head off. But I never got the chicken fingers.
I had a sales training that was so cool and so hip that they decided to put a clip from Tommy Boy in when he's talking to the waitress and is like, "Let me tell you why I suck as a salesman." And I thought it was funny. And that was like my first little clip of actually seeing the movie, not just reciting the quotes that all my friends and everyone else in my junior high were saying. And that I think was like my intro to like, okay, I think I'll go see this now. I'm a full grown man. I'll be able to go rent a video myself and check it out. And so I did. But oh man, those sales training meetings, you're just looking for filler or just trying to make people laugh when you throw in a clip from a movie that makes zero sense and doesn't really accomplish what you're trying to do. But hey, made it fun. So good for those people that did it.
Were there any other movie clips in this said sales training? Was there some boiler rooms, some Glengarry Glen Ross, some coffees for closers?
I will tell you exactly the movies that were in it. There was Tommy Boy. For no reason whatsoever, it was a Jet Li movie where it was just an action scene of him just beating the shit out of people.
That's one
And
way to close the deal.
the logic behind it is that, oh, Jet Li is the salesperson, and all the people that he's beating up, those are the objections that he's overcoming. And I was like, uh-huh. Okay, so you guys didn't plan this shit at all. Like this is the as entertaining as this is, you guys are basically just fucking around in a room for 8 hours before this meeting and then just saying like, hey, let's just show some movie clips and just kind of fake it till we make it. I know that it was all bullshit.
Oh man,
So
that's some 650 an hour kind of training there.
I'm sure
Wow.
a lot of us, if you broke down like the hours that we worked, was probably a little bit closer to minimum wage than we would have liked.
Look
But
at
yeah,
him beat down those objections. Wife's not here. Ciao. Let's go.
it that's how ridiculous that it was. We're like wondering, so wait, what is this? And like the guys are just like chuckling in the background, like, well, that's overcoming objections. Like wife's not here. Yeah, like exactly what you said right there. I'm just like, huh,
Don't have the
okay.
money. We can finance.
Uh,
Ciao.
finance. Need to think about it? What do you need to think about? It's like, no,
If
no.
if money wasn't an option, would you buy today?
What can I do to get you into this product today? Oh gosh, the salesman lingo, ridiculous. Luckily, there wasn't a whole lot of that in this movie, but people who wanted to just think that their sales jobs were fun could just at least pretend to relate to this. Who am I to judge? I'm going to continue to judge, but who am I to
I was going to
judge?
say the hypocrisy is strong. You judge
Strong, very strong.
weak.
We talked about some origin about this movie. I want to talk about Chris Farley and kind of just our origin with him just a little bit. Chris Farley, rest in peace, one
R.I.P.
of the greats. Gosh, I mean, I don't know who could be in the same caliber as physical comedian. Don't say Chevy Chase because I swear to God. But Chris Farley for sure has to be up there, at least number two in top physical comedians.
So many of those SNL guys come to mind, but yeah, I have no argument on Farley. I love me some Farley.
Would you say that Chevy Chase was the better physical comedian, though?
I'm Chevy Chase apparently is kind of a dick, so I'm not very pro Chevy Chase unless it's Christmas time. And then I'll watch Family Vacation, but or Christmas Vacation. But if it's not a vacation movie, I'm not really. Eh. He's not even the best physical comedian in Caddyshack. Bill Murray in that movie is way better. I'm not overly concerned about Chevy Chase as a Farley um contemporary. I think that Farley definitely brought it to a whole nother level. Going through walls, going through tables, going through whatever.
Exotic dancing.
Yeah, I was gonna say that the Patrick Swayze dancing
Uh,
is kind of the staple there. Living in a van down by the river. Just so much good Farley that's not this movie. And then this movie might be the best Farley movie. It's not Black Sheep because that Black Sheep is just basically Tommy Boy again.
I was
Um,
gonna say that Black Sheep, I kind of got those two movies confused because I actually went to go see Black Sheep in the theaters, Bremen theaters, RIP. So I spent a solid $1.50 tops to get into that movie. My friends were saying, "Have you seen Tommy Boy?" I was like, "No." I was like, "Well, this is just like Tommy Boy, so let's go see it." Like, okay, fine. So I remember going to see Black Sheep, but Chris Farley, man, he was so good on SNL, and just his almost just innocence of how he would play his characters, and then he would just become like this brash, abrasive, like, oh, just he's so lively and animated that you can't help but appreciate his versatility. That's just my jam. So I'm a big fan of versatility.
It's
But what
sad that he only did a few movies. Like you wanted more. He had some great cameos in movies, right? Like Coneheads, Wayne's World, Billy Madison. Like he was in some things, but he only got like the movie all to himself for Tommy Boy, Black Sheep, Beverly Hills Ninja.
but what about with David Spade? So he was the partner in this one. So if you were looking for a buddy cop movie, that's kind of his buddy cop, David Spade. But what were your thoughts on him?
I've never been like a huge Spade fan. Spade's snarkiness, never was my favorite. Though I do have a soft spot for like Joe Dirt, but I think that together they just worked because Farley had that sweet innocence. Spade balanced it out well, and that's kind of where Spade was able to find his niche is doing the balancing, whether it's with Sandler, whether it's with whoever.
I never liked David Spade back in the day. I thought all of his skits on SNL where he was a part of it, like the bye bye. Like I thought that was the most annoying skit ever. People think this is funny. It is funny. I just for some reason just didn't like David Spade. It wasn't my type of humor at the time. I think I appreciate his sense of humor and his characters that he played on SNL way more now than I did when I was little. So I think I just appreciated the on the nose, like without a doubt, this is supposed to be funny compared to the snarkiness and the sarcastic tone of David Spade.
Yeah,
But I
I think
totally
that
get you.
I agree. I think that was more of a, I don't want to call it adult, but more of like a humor that you appreciated more when you were older. But again, you saw this not early, not in the 90s, I'm assuming, when it came out. So maybe Spade should have appealed to you more. I don't know.
It was in the 2000s, so definitely it was I still didn't I was still in that mindset of not liking David Spade though. I wasn't as jaded as I am now, so that's another reason as to why I probably didn't like his humor in a lot of things, but now I could totally go back and see and appreciate his art and his craft.
His
But
art, David Spade and art, I don't think were things that maybe have been crossed over in phrases together.
I wholeheartedly disagree because that guy pulls the most gorgeous women. And if that's not an art, I don't know what is. Something about David Spade just ends up pulling supermodels for like no reason. And it's just a mystery to everyone.
I mean, David Spade may be the original Pete Davidson. If you really
Yeah,
think
maybe.
about it, if you go blow for blow, like it's close, man.
Could be. But if Pete Davidson is pulling people in his 50s like David Spade, then maybe. Maybe. But I mean, Pete Davidson, his track record is
I,
pretty good. It's solid.
it's just Pete Davidson could just be having early career success and be a first ballot Hall of Famer after retiring like Barry Sanders, just walking
Maybe.
away in his prime and still a good enough resume to make it to the Hall.
Now that
David
we've
Spade, it
lost
took time. It took time for David Spade.
now that we've lost our female listenership, we'll go on to the next
What are you
aspect
talking
of
about? Those
things.
are everybody loves Pete Davidson.
Not David Spade. I was talking about David Spade. But so your expectations going into this movie, you said this has been a while since you've seen this. Were you
Mm-hmm.
thinking anything? Were you like excited to see it? Were you thinking like, oh no, maybe I might not like it as much as I used to? What were your thoughts?
I think that as you go back to something like this, you're always worried that it'll hit differently. And it does, right? It's there's certain parts of it that are just older, but I think the thing about this movie that hits well for me is I remember having like the soundtrack and a lot of the one-liners in it, a lot of the quotes still hold up, right? A lot of the things that you would reference are still they're still funny and you kind of remember how much you would reference them and how much you would kind of go back to it, right?
All
I
the
think that
time.
yeah, all the time. I think that the plot changes with your view of things and how you observe it is a little different, but the moments still last. Like the jokes still hit, right?
Yeah. What I was thinking of going into this movie is I was super excited because, like, oh my gosh, I have not seen this in forever. And I think with my different set of adult goggles on, I might be able to pull a few more things from this movie and appreciate it more, or even maybe get a few more of the jokes. Because I know when I was watching it, I wasn't studying it like I study some of the movies, or at least, go into a little bit more detail and research about movies now. And that's kind of the mindset I was in. I was thinking I was in for a ride. I was thinking I was going to find more things that were funny about this movie or appreciate more things about it. And I was ready. I was ready to go. I was 90s out, and I was ready to record this podcast too.
So what's one of the jokes that you got now that you didn't get then?
The big thing for me was after the cow tipping, and Rob Lowe is just shooting gasoline on him, washing him off.
Was
And
it
so that
gasoline
was
or was it water?
I mean, I thought it was water initially, but they're at a gas pump. So I could be wrong, but maybe it was just the quick view was like, he's shooting gasoline on him and he's just loving it and he's acting like a maniac, maniac. So just little things like that that I picked up that I was like, very interesting. But in terms of like the jokes, I think I got pretty much a majority of the jokes. I was just thinking going into it, I might like, oh, probably this went over my head as a kid. But no, I understood all the dick references, all the self-pleasure references and everything. So I totally got it. I was a kid
We're
in junior
children.
high that already knew a whole lot of things. That's all.
The things you learn from watching the Terminator.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was just I appreciate all of the jokes in this, but some of them I like forgot how much I would use them or like reference them all the time. I think the first one that I remembered is early in the movie when he's taking the test and he writes in Herbie Hancock. And I used to just say, yeah, just put your Herbie Hancock on this real quick. And it just was
I'm wondering if people still don't know what that is. Because do they know who Herbie Hancock is? Like, I don't even know if people really know, or if it's just something that they heard from a movie and they thought it sounded silly.
I mean, I know who Herbie Hancock is, but I have an eclectic music taste. Um, but that is really funny if they don't. But yeah, I do think it's funny. And there are just so many other things in this that are just like stupid funny. And that's what I appreciate about it, right? Is the stupid funny parts. The dick jokes are great, but like the fan Darth Vader voice gets me every time. It's just funny.
Didn't we always, as kids, fuck around with a fan like that and
Oh
just be like,
yeah, heck yeah.
my son, my youngest, still does that to this day, and you think it's the best thing in the world. And I got one of those like little space saver fans where it's just like all vertical. So it's not like the old metal ones where you'd run your hand and then all of a sudden your finger get caught in it and your finger get hit by the blade and stuff. But
I
he
know
still
exactly
enjoys
what you're
silly
talking
stuff
about.
like that. It's the simple things in life that we find pleasure in because he is just a big dumb idiot. He's so
I
fucking lovable.
Yes, yes. Such a squishy faced little cut of bug. I love it. Love it. There's so many self-deprecating jokes in this movie that I feel like I built my own self-deprecating sense of humor on the back of Tommy Boy.
I think that's like the best kind of humor, right? Because it's a victimless crime because you're making fun of yourself and you're just trying to have a good time and make people laugh. So it's not mean-spirited, almost like David Spade would be like the mean-spirited type of comedy, but it's almost he's trying to do it a little bit more passive aggressively. So even though it's like directly at him, the stuff is still going over his head. That type of humor, I totally dig. Like I said before, during that sales training that I had, they played the little clip of him talking to the waitress saying why he sucks as a salesman. And that little speech right there was probably it goes underappreciated as to how versatile and how talented Chris Farley was as an actor. He could change gears and go, 0 to 100, no problem, and then coast a little bit, and then boom, back to 100 again. So talented, man. That's what really impressed me about this movie is his actual delivery of lines and facial expressions as he's talking about stuff. But yeah, so many good bits. I can't forget about the housekeeping. Like, how many times did you and your friends do that at whether it's like at hotels or like knocking on people's dorm rooms and stuff like that? Jesus. Like, that was nonstop into my 20s. Crazy.
You know how many times I've tried to do fat guy in a little coat and nobody will let me?
So let me ask you, this is a silly question, and I think I know the answer already, but did he get that from anywhere else? Or
Fat
was
guy in
that
a
just
little
a
coat?
Farley? Yeah, is that just a Farley thing that he just decided
Um,
to do on a whim?
I am not aware of it somewhere else, but it could be from somewhere else. I
I
don't know.
I find it very, very funny, but I was just like, it's just an odd bit to put into a movie, but if it's just improv and shit, like maybe that was just an improv scene. I don't know. Like maybe not, but that's a that's a funny little line too, where he's just trying to cheer David Spade up. And he's like, "Cut it out, dickhead. I'm serious."
I mean, Spade tells a story. Farley used to actually do that in their office at SNL. Like not
Oh,
to the
okay.
point where he ripped his coat, but he would just try and mess with him while he was working or trying to write. And he'd be like, "Fat guy in a little coat." So I mean, that could be how it got in the movie. I've never seen it anywhere else, and the Google machine does not have anybody else but Farley doing it.
I
So
wouldn't expect anyone else to, but I was just thinking like, oh, was this in an SNL skit that I just may have missed? But that makes sense. If he was just basically doing it in the green room with
mhm.
David Spade, okay, cool. That settles that.
That's one of those top three things in a movie that I've been dying to reenact, and I never can get the all clear. No little guy wants me to rip their coat. It's sad.
I wonder if people would get it now. It's been so long since that
I'd
movie
still
came
get
out.
it, and that's all that matters, Dan.
Yeah,
I don't give a shit
that's
about
true.
them.
It would be so funny if you did try it. Like someone was like, "Hey, can I do Fat Guy in a Coat?" Like, yeah, sure. Not knowing what you're
Hmm.
gonna do, and then all
Hmm.
of a sudden you just rip someone's blazer,
I should just
and
go to a thrift store randomly and just put it back right back on the
yeah,
shelf. Nobody
there you
knows.
go.
Nobody's gonna
Do
know.
do it at
Nobody's gonna
Goodwill.
know.
Goodwill stuff is overpriced anyways now, so I'm sure they wouldn't miss it.
I mean, I don't want to go into debt. Is it a break it? You break it, you bought it. I mean that
Uh,
and the Ghostbusters pulling out the tablecloth while the table is set is on my bucket list of things to do somewhere. And I was at a wedding recently and I was so close to doing it and my wife stopped me. Stopped me in an aggressive do not do that kind of way. In a very
as as she should have,
yeah,
because that's just a that's an
the
asshole
groom would have
bill.
appreciated it. I told him about it earlier. He's like, I wish you would have.
Maybe
And
they
I
wouldn't have
told her,
appreciated the bill afterwards, like,
whatever,
hey,
man.
one of your guests decided to be an asshole and, like this is the fifth wedding this week that someone's trying to pull off the tablecloth.
I mean, you don't invite me to your wedding unless you understand the implications of my attendance. You talk about housekeeping being really funny. I always thought that the Buddy Wackett scene was hilarious. He sees the girl skinny dipping. Tommy walks by and he's like, "Which way is the gym?" Oh, it's probably over here. And
What
then
a creepo. Like that's so freaking creepy. I can never picture myself doing that. And so that's why I was like, ugh, God,
which
Spade's
part?
such a dirtbag. The like David Spade, what David Spade's doing, basically just being a George McFly peeping Tom and just
A voyeur.
ready to
I
have a
mean,
little fireman time.
dude, sometimes random boobs come out and you're lonely and on the road.
That has never happened. And I travel a lot. Never happened.
Stay in better
Ever.
hotels, my dude.
I stay in just fine hotels, but there never anything like that happens. The only time anything weird has happened, and it happened in Vegas, is I was going back up to my room at like 8 in the morning, and I was going back to get something because we were leaving on a bus to go somewhere. And I get to my floor and I'm already late. I'm waiting for the elevator down, and there's a guy with his pants completely down in the elevator at 8 in the morning. And I don't know what he's doing. So it's like, I'm just going to wait for the next elevator. Luckily, that story was okay for me to be like a few minutes late. It's like, hey, I know I'm late. I've got a really good reason.
I
I was
ran
gonna
into one of the little rascals in the elevator.
I was not getting in that elevator even if I was going to be on time. Sorry, but it worked out. It
He
worked
wanted
out to where I
help,
wasn't in
Dan.
trouble.
He just needed a hand.
He wanted something. I don't know. I
Mm,
couldn't tell you.
mm.
But you're sure as shit I wasn't getting in that elevator afterwards unless I knew that like, okay, there's no residue anywhere. Okay,
What
we're good.
music was playing in the elevator? Was it the
Could I
Carpenters? Don't you remember you told me you love me, baby?
baby, 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 oh baby. God, that's a funny scene too.
That would
Gosh.
have just been an amazing elevator ride down. You might have to put the stop button and be a little late for that bus.
Have you ever been in a car with someone and like you're pissed at each other, like almost just identical to that scene where all of a sudden you just land on this song and it's like, oh, you can change it if you want.
Usually, if I'm in a car with somebody and we fight about something, there's not music on in the background. It's just awkward silence and anger building up.
Fair enough. I
And then
think
my wife hits me in the face.
I've never had that happen, but I'm pretty sure there's always been times where I'm riding in the car with someone and like some type of poppy song comes on. Okay, can't seem like a bitch right now. I'm not going to make the other person think that I like this. So I'll like put my hand towards the radio dial and they'll be like, "Oh no, keep it on there." It's like, "Okay, fine. I can handle this." So,
So let me ask you this question then. If you were in the car right now with, I'm just going to say your wife, and you were fighting, there was anger, there was some kind of disagreement, and there was some frustration going on, and you were turned this way, and she was turned this way, and you needed to bring the moment together and get a smile and remove yourself from the doghouse because we all know it was your fault. What song would you put on the radio to break the tension and bring positive energy to it?
easy. Adam Sandler at a medium pace. No questions asked.
That's
That's
it.
it. That's it. I mean, is there any other song that's gonna break the tension and really just bring out laughter? No, that song is gonna do it. That song is
What
so wonderful. I remember specifically when I played that song for my wife, and she's like, "What type of slow shit is this?" And then it started getting into the funny parts, and gosh, still one of the funniest things. And I remember in college I would play that song uh in my apartment just at full blast just to be able to be that guy, just being like, oh, it's funny, I'm gonna play this edgy song and just make people laugh. And
it wouldn't be like a Spanish song that you could sing along to. The car
no,
scenes
no,
in this movie were so good. So
they were
good.
all right. So I'm not laughing as much during the car scenes other than that Carpenter song. um it's fine, it's funny, but I'm not like laughing out loud where
I
I find it as funny.
I do think that that scene is one of the areas that I'd mentioned earlier where it's like there are a few of the jokes that just don't hold up. And because we're not in the situation where you only get two radio stations while you're driving anymore, and you have this plethora of music at your fingertips no matter what, and you haven't been in the situation for so long where this is all that's there and you just got to fucking enjoy it, whether it's country or western or
Both
80s
types.
rock or whatever it is, man. It's music or it's so
So you don't run into that now, even on like Spotify or YouTube Music. Like I still run into that now to where it's songs that I like, and I'm just like, oh, I can't listen to the song again. Can't listen. It's like it's almost like the same.
I
problems that
think
we
that
have.
you mistake my circumstance. You don't have control over what's on the radio. And you only have like one or two radio stations that work as you're driving through rural America. There's not up and down the
Sure,
radio band.
but you
So you're
still run into
stuck
that
in it.
issue. You
I
still
don't
run
run
into
into
that
that
issue with
issue.
music.
No, I don't. I got like gigs of stuff downloaded. Like if I
Mm,
like a playlist, I just download it. I mean, I'm the guy that
okay.
had like 5,000 songs on his iPod and could just shuffle for 5 hours. Like, you remember when it would tell you like how long your iPod would play if you just hit play and just plugged it in? And like,
Yeah.
I had 2 months worth of non-repeat in that bad boy, man.
I
I could
never
go to
had
the
that
moon.
much. I had like 5 days worth on my
Mm-hmm.
iPod. But yeah, man, that's like for music still, I still think that we still run into that issue of these new songs suck. These old songs that used to be good suck. Or, oh, I listened to this song to death, so it sucks, so I have to skip the songs. I still think to this day, no one can go through 8 of their songs on whatever type of listening device
Mm-hmm.
that they have without skipping.
But I'm talking about in that circumstance they were in, you couldn't skip.
Yeah,
You're
I know.
just stuck with it.
I know,
And
but you
that's where
stuck
you
with
lose some of the
skipping.
funny.
But I don't think that was something where you lose a little bit of the funny. I think more of it is just the childish type of immature humor, which it's
Mm.
funny, but as you get older, it's either like a little bit of cringe. Like the whole David Spade voyeur thing was, I'm sure people thought it was hilarious back in the day. And now it'll probably be one of those scenes where people like get like uptight in their seats, like, oh, you know what I mean? Like I think that's where it comes into play for me.
Yeah, I hear you. It's just funny that way. I also love that they introduce all of us urban kids to cow tipping in this movie. The absolute myth that cows sleep standing up.
My wife says she used to go cow tipping. I think like you're a liar. Now, this is all based off of secondhand, fourth hand, ninth hand information of
Was
like
this when
cows are
she
like,
lived in Ireland? She'd go cow
yeah,
tipping?
I would grill her about it. It's like, how the hell? Because here's when we
I
talked
think
about
cow
it.
tipping was code for something there.
No, but when we were talking about it in junior high, kids would just be like, yeah, I think that's a myth because how the hell are you going to tip a cow that's at least 800 pounds? It just doesn't make any sense from the strength perspective. Like, I don't know. Maybe it works. I don't know. Listeners, if you've ever gone cow tipping, comment, chime in, email us directly. I can do this all day podcast at gmail.com. Tell us your story. I would love to hear your story about cow tipping if you've done it. Cow tipping, I think, is a myth in the sense that, like you said, just from cow sleeping standing up, I think it's just a myth altogether because I don't know if anyone is a majority of the people that may want to go cow tipping are probably not strong enough to knock a cow over.
I mean, if there was anybody that would be able to lay center mass across a small cow and render it to its side, I think Farley might have been able to pull it off. He
Maybe,
may have been able to build it.
maybe.
He's got the tools. He can do it.
What about like the deer? Once they hit the deer and they're all emotional about it, and they're like, "We can't just leave it here." I that was a clip like I remember that being funny, and then I remember it now thinking, like, who in their right mind would put a deer in a car? Anyways, this doesn't this doesn't click. Like, why would you do that? I wouldn't do that.
No, but maybe we're just bad people. Maybe we just hate animals. Maybe the listeners are like, I save every deer. And then they say, because I make venison steaks out of it and jerky.
I was
Like,
gonna say, like, most people probably do that. I shouldn't say most, but a good portion may.
I
It's like,
mean,
ooh,
I'm sure that roadkill is a thing and that people still do it.
my
Um,
family has done it. I know that they've done that
mm,
back in the day. So it's happened. I yeah. You ever
you
want to
haven't
hear
done
that
cow
story?
tipping, but you've done the roadkill. I love it. I love it.
I didn't do it. It was a family road trip where we and I'm sure this is past the statute of limitations of any type of legality perspective, but allegedly we hit a deer on the way home from vacation. And for all those that don't know who just listen audio, or maybe they just don't look at me and they don't see color, but I come from an ethnic background. And my family and my dad's side in particular, they did what they needed to do to survive. And one of those things was being able to butcher animals if they needed to. We did it.
I mean,
Well,
you know,
I didn't
sometimes
do it, but my family member allegedly did it. So
allegedly, allegedly,
allegedly, that's all.
those
That's all
antlers
you
in
need
the
to say.
background,
That's
the
all you need to
antlers
say.
under the Deadpool hat say nothing of allegedly, of
Yeah.
allegedly. Yeah, no, I don't think that I would even have, it's a traumatic experience to hit or almost hit a deer, but then picking it up off the side of the road, I don't know that that would be in my top priorities there. Sorry, PETA, but I'm not doing it. Wouldn't be prudent. Also, how do you get it in the back seat of that Mustang? Like there's barely enough room for Farley and Spade in that thing.
Yeah, I just thought that was a little bit unrealistic, but hey, I get it. It's a movie. It's not Marthaing me at all. I was just, it didn't, the logistical, logical brain in my head was just like, never would happen. But okay, let's move on.
I feel like all of the sales meetings in this just rub together and I love it. There's all of these hits where he's failing. The one where he lights the car on fire is so great.
I thought he had it for a second. I thought, oh, this is going to be the one where he actually turns it around. But no,
Oh no. Ah!
goes goes down in flames.
And also the Brian Dennehy portion of this movie where Big Man is just smooth as silk. Like you'd love Brian Dennehy in this movie as Big Tom.
R.I.P. Brian Dennehy. I just feel like Brian Dennehy has been so good in so many movies. Tommy Boy, First Blood, to Cocoon. So many
Yep.
movies that he's been in, and I felt like he was alive still. I realized like, oh, because he died like quite a few years ago. Great actor, and I love his performance in just about everything. And he has that charisma that you will believe that whether he's Big Tom Callahan, whether he's a freaking racist sheriff in a small town. That's him. Like he can play any part expertly, and he did it.
So many good things that he's done. He won a bunch of Emmys. I think like 6 Emmys. Like he never got enough credit. I remember him in Cocoon. That was like the first OG Brian Dennehy movie that I remember, but he was in so much. And then like South Park made fun of him, so he became relevant again.
Oh, I didn't even realize I made fun. When was it?
I was early in South Park.
Okay.
Early South Park. I remember him on a few episodes of The West Wing. Like he would just show up in things and never be bad. But I think my favorite Brian Dennehy has to be a Big Tom Callahan because he's just an absolute killer. You and I have met these salespeople, these old salespeople who are just silky smooth. They're just that good.
A close to extinct breed, I would say, but they're still out there. God bless them. So one thing that we haven't really talked about is the antagonists of the movie. This is a pretty, I won't say feel good movie, but it's there for entertainment and laughs. And you still get some of the laughs with the in quote baddies, the con artists, which surprise, surprise, you've got Rob Lowe and Bo Derek as the con artists, as a married couple posing as a mother and son, which is a weird way to pose to do a con. But hey, it's the 90s, right?
I mean, who was the leader of that husband and wife team? Was it Rob Lowe or was it Bo Derek?
I would have assumed that it was Rob Lowe. He's just a cuck. And he's just like, I've got this good idea. You're gonna marry some rich guy that's gonna die soon, and we're gonna inherit everything.
He's
That's what
just
it's
a
gonna
cuck.
be.
I
Like
love
I
it.
think, right? I mean, who would like anyone in their right mind isn't gonna let their wife just be like, hey, let's make some money. Let's whore you out. And yeah, we'll do it that way. Like, no. It's Rob Lowe's like, ooh, I've got an idea. Why don't you get married to a guy? Like I just feel like that's his MO. He's just that much of a dirtbag that he's like, okay, yeah, I'm down for a little bit of degrading Rob Lowe.
Don't hate on Rob Lowe. This I believe was like one of the career revitalizers for a Rob Lowe from a movie perspective. And for Bo Derek, I feel like it brought her back into relevance at a senior age at that point. But for somebody whose claim to fame was being in 10, right, and being this object of people's desire, it was that's how I figured out who Bo Derek was from Tommy Boy. Did you know who Bo Derek was before this movie as a
Yeah.
youth?
Yeah, I did because I never saw this as a youth. I know I'm probably in the minority there.
Well, I loved Rob Lowe as a villain, and I enjoy Rob Lowe villain roles. Like I'm a big Wayne's World fan as well, and I just enjoy that. But seeing him do this and seeing him kind of go back and forth with Farley was great. And I know that he constantly talks about it.
He's such a good ensemble actor. He doesn't need the spotlight, but it just kind of gravitates towards him because he has that charisma, that magnetic personality and the delivery of his lines to where whether he's a good guy, whether he's a bad guy or just a normal guy, like he still has a lot of panache to work the camera and that's just a perfect example of his resume of being a character in an ensemble cast that just gets his screen time.
I would agree. He also may be in the most SNL based movies.
So there's two movies. There's
There's
two.
at least three. I'm looking back at the older ones. I don't think he was in It's Pat or anything like that, but he was in the first Wayne's World. He was in Tommy Boy, and then he was in the Austin Powers movies
That's
as
right.
young
That's right.
number two.
Do you consider that an SNL movie?
It's a Mike Myers movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Did Lauren Michaels produce that?
I believe so. Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. I for some reason I never I didn't associate it as an SNL movie because I think he had been gone from the cast pretty like for at least a few years when that movie came out. So that's the
Did
only
he?
reason I was thinking. I'm pretty
When did he
sure.
leave I thought he was on SNL for a really long
I
time.
thought he was gone after like 93, 94, but I could be wrong.
He left in 95,
Okay,
um
yeah.
which is after I think the first one came out, I believe. Or no, it came out in 97. You were right. Too bad there wasn't a bet there.
I mean, there's not enough time in the world to make up the bets. So,
But I
but
feel like any
anyways,
Mike Myers movie is usually going to be an SNL movie, right? I
yeah,
call
I don't
Shrek an
disagree.
SNL movie. There's two SNL alums in Shrek.
That is a good point. Very good point. But
And Farley was supposed to play Shrek, and I don't think it would have worked. Have you seen
yeah.
some of the voiceover stuff?
Yeah, I was gonna say I did
Weird.
see some of that and I actually was okay with it because I think that granted, Mike Myers is Shrek, right? Like he is just
Hmm.
completely owned that role. But at the same time, I think we probably would have gotten a really good Farley movie out of that and a really good performance because he has a much better duality of personalities, like a very polarizing type of performance where you feel sorry for him, you feel bad for him, you empathize with him, compared to where he's supposed to be this ogre, right? And so I don't know. I would have loved it. I think it would have been better than Mike Myers. Granted, Mike Myers, fantastic job, and it speaks for
Hmm.
itself because Shrek is everywhere and it's been one of the longest lasting cartoon properties out there.
I mean, they're doing
Spawning
another one.
spinoff.
You were talking about the baddies and the Rob Lowe in this. That's another quote that I use all the time. Brothers don't shake hands. Brothers gotta hug.
I Yeah, I don't know. I didn't pull as many quotes from this compared to just all the little bit parts and skits inside the movie, like housekeeping, Buddy Whack-It, and all that stuff. But not saying I'm not having a good time. I just didn't I maybe I just wasn't looking for it because I was looking for like a deeper, truer understanding of the movie. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I was just looking for the wrong thing.
Let's be honest. You were just trying to get the T-bone line right and be able to use it on the podcast. Did you get it? Do you have it?
That is a good line. I'll try it right now with not even really knowing what it is, but I could get a good look at a T-bone if I stuck my head up a bull's ass, but I'd rather trust the butcher's word for it. Is that it?
I'd rather take the butcher's word for it.
Take the
Yeah.
butcher's word for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No. That's
I
it.
I tried reciting that and I was like, yeah, I can totally understand why he totally
Why
fucked this
be
up
so hard?
on
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I could take a shit in a box and put a guarantee on it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Those are all good lines though. Such a fun way to see Chris Farley try and find his way in adult life, right? Like, because he's just this big dumb animal before in college, this party guy, and now he has to put on his big boy pants. And it takes him a while, just like it takes everyone a while to find their own personality and who they really are.
well, I
But
think that's why we like this movie so much, is because we remember working with those idiots in sales and being one of those idiots, right? Like your first sales job when you think you're being funny or you think you've got a good line and it's just so bad, right? Like
have
you
you
empathize.
have
Farley
you
brings on
ever
empathy.
I remember back in the day, I worked somewhere, and you would say, you might be able to say that it was just like a patriotic bargain, just a patriotic bargain at shopping where I worked. I'm
I
not
bet they have a
divulging my
sale
answer.
today. I bet they have a sale today on Labor Day, ready to just make all of these Americans. They want to make sales to them.
Some would say that it might even be a sale worthy of all Americans. But I
Oh.
was always into my jobs for the most part. I was
So you were proud to be an American and sell
nah, no,
and make sales?
no, no. I was just very proud of being able to make a living. And I was a company guy. And I still am a company guy. But at the same time, I always found it just way better to put myself into it and just believe and be, 100% for everything because I have more fun with it. I'm able to be more of myself in comparison to like just selling something that I freaking hate. But I'll make myself believe in something if I want to make some money, so that's not a problem. But
You're a better
uh,
man than me.
this one was for sure. This was early on in my career, so I can't really do that anymore. But at this point in time, absolutely, I love what I do now, and I'm really lucky as to what I'm able to do for work. But back then there was this particular weekend. It was just spectacular, a very spectacular sales weekend, and a lot was riding on this. I hit some really great numbers, and the funny thing is, like because I was just over it, I was exhausted. One of the people that had me stay after hours to try out some of the merchandise. He was in to finalize the delivery. He was just like, "Hey, we're ready for delivery, ready to go." Signing off on the paperwork and you know how you're supposed to like placate to their egos, if they spend a shitload of money. And this was by far the most money that one of my customers had paid for on that weekend. I was just so over it, and he was like so up his own ass with how much money he has, and just a nice guy, but at the same time just like, dude, just relax, man. Like you don't need to flaunt the fact that you have money and you go on all these great vacations and you're buying this really big ticket item. And so I was just done with that whole rigmarole, that he had said like, "Hey, let me just ask you something." And he was being really nice, really polite about everything. He wasn't trying to boast. It was more of a humble brag, but he had said, "Have you ever had an order that big?" And I quickly, without hesitation, I was like, "Oh yeah, last year we had someone about twice as much, but you guys are great. You guys are just fantastic." And so like I was just done with him. I don't know, like he was just so full of himself that I was just like, can't do it anymore. I'm
I
done.
spent the most money here,
Yeah,
obviously. Yeah.
but
No, screw that guy.
wanted to
I
shoot
hope
that guy down right quick, as the kids would say.
I always sell these all the time.
Yeah,
Our customers are very into this product. It's our best seller.
yeah. Oh
You
no,
got the this is the entry level of douche canoes.
right. One other thing, I don't want to bring this up, but I feel like I need to. There
Mm.
is another actor in this movie. I'm surprised you haven't brought him up yet. I'm surprised it wasn't the first person that you brought up while watching this movie. But there is somewhat of a savior in this that is not an antagonist, but not necessarily a good guy, but in the end kind of helps out Tommy Boy. And that's Dan Aykroyd as Zelensky.
Ray Zelinsky.
How have you not talked about this guy for a majority of the episode?
We were getting there. You were telling us this story about you being a dick to people.
Yeah, that story sucked. Sorry, guys.
It did. It did. Um, I don't know what's better about Dan Aykroyd in this movie, the giant hair or the caricature of him as the king of auto parts with 1,200 stores nationwide.
That is impressive, though. 1,200 for auto parts. Not bad.
Yeah,
Good job
there's
for you, Ray.
I think the great part about this is the Dan Aykroyd character universe that they talk about from this, right? And who, what, when, where it comes from. Um, Supposedly in the lore, right? Dan Aykroyd started out as Uncle Roman in the great outdoors and took Chet's money and opened up an auto parts store and became the king of brake pads, but then got cleaned out in the divorce from Bo Derek and went back to Tommy, worked with Tommy a little bit, and Tommy, he knew he wanted to get out of brake pads, so he went to medical school and founded the Zelensky Brain Injury wing in Hawaii, which is part of 51st Dates, right? Funded by the great people of Sandusky, Ohio. So there was this whole Dan Aykroyd journey that goes on through three movies that people have connected. Do you remember he was the doctor in 51st Dates, and it was the Callahan Brain Institute, not the Zelensky Brain Institute?
Oh, I had no idea what the fuck you were talking about. So yeah,
I mean,
I've
Dan
I've only
Aykroyd's just been
seen.
in so many great movies that how could we not talk about at least three?
I guess, but we've talked about it. I guess we've talked about it on this episode alone. Um, Anything else that you got for the movie?
Um, I just think it's so quotable and so funny that if you're having to work today, I think that you should go home after. You should open up a cold one and you should just find Tommy Boy and watch it because it's awesome. And
Well, I
it still
guess
holds up. Still holds up. And that's the good part about it, right? Like we go back to some 90s movies and watch them specifically because they don't hold up. But man, still rolling high.
so. Can you do this movie all day?
Oh, absolutely. Love, love, love it. I don't watch it as often as some of like the Marvel movies out there or the other things, right? It's not like an all the time background movie, but man, revisiting it, still great. And my wife's gonna be super annoyed with all of the Tommy Boy references that start coming her way over the next few weeks.
I'm sorry. Uh,
Can you do this all day? It seems like you haven't before, but is it going to be a family bonding movie? Are you bringing it to the boys? Are they going to learn their first dick jokes from Tommy Boy?
now they've learned that a long time ago from me. So I'll put my stamp on that proudly. Like, yep, you got that humor from me, buddy, not some movie. But the this movie I was really interested in seeing, and it it didn't hit me how I thought it would hit me. Uh, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I wasn't laughing as much. I wasn't finding. I was more of like, oh yeah, that's funny. Like I wasn't as reactive to it as much. And I don't know if it was just because it's a PG-13 movie or because today's level of PG-13 is like that much more amped that this just seems like a PG movie to me. Now, granted, not the little voyeur scene and anything, but I don't know, man. I go back and forth on it. I'm like right there on the line. And I'm gonna say it's a very, very mild, I can do this all day. The reasoning as to why is because Chris Farley's performance is just too good And I like Chris Farley too much to just push this movie off to the side and say, like, nah, I can't do it all day. I think it's worth it just for his performance alone and him and Spades back and forth that it makes it a worthwhile. It makes it worth the watch. It makes it where you can enjoy that type of movie because he can change gears at any time and it's funny. Uh, the rest of the performances, Aykroyd, I did like Rob Lowe's performance in it, but he's just, being Rob Lowe as a bad guy. Could care less about Bo Derek. I really, it's not a sticking point for me. It was just kind of there. And Brian Dennehy I liked. So there's like three people that I like: Farley, Dennehy, and Lowe. And I like Spade in this movie just because of his interaction with Chris Farley. But the music, once again, a lot of popular music being used, and some of it really funny in the car rides. So I'll give that like a nice little green light there. But other than that, like it's I'm not screaming and shouting from the mountains to say, I can do this all day. I love this movie. Like, no, that's not it. But I will say that it's absolutely worth a watch and worth a revisit if you haven't done so in a long time. And because it's Labor Day, why not? Why not
What
watch
else are
them?
you doing?
Exactly. Besides listening to this podcast, maybe? I don't know. Maybe. But that wraps it up for this episode. I am Dan, the part-time adventurer. That is Mark, the resident Jedi.
Like, subscribe, tell us what you think. 5-star reviews are appreciated on all platforms, right? People could listen to this whole podcast and fall in love with our banter, or they could just read your 5-star review and take your word for it. So that's what you should do. Take a second. It's your day off. Leave us a review. Hit us up on all the socials. I Can Do This All Day podcast on everything possible. And like, subscribe, and give us a shout. What movie should we do next year on Labor Day? It's never too early to plan ahead. And what other holidays should we recognize with reviews?
We'll see you later, everyone. Maybe? No? No sign off? No?
That was it. We're done here. I'm taking the rest of the day off.